Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum podcast. My name is Citizen Strife, and it's that bi-monthly review of anime that I've been watching, and getting to the nitty-gritty of the end of most seasons, including the end of one show. I think it's still going to take another update to finish a couple because they were delayed in their dub episodes, but shouldn't be too crazy. But as has been stated in all the other reviews so far, I do have a spoiler warning for these, just in case you haven't caught up on these shows or anything of that nature. It's not going to be every show that I talk about. I've kind of centered around 4 or so by the end of the season, plus some of the stuff that I dropped early. And I'm not going to get into, say, the winter stuff until probably the next upload. And there's no guarantee that I will, because there's no guarantee that I will get to the dub version yet. But I do know one show in particular, and actually 2, that I would probably talk about right now that I'm interested in, plus some of the other ones that I've kind of gotten filtered in so far via some trailers and things, but nothing too concrete. But let's start with Dandadan, because that finished up. And I said this before, that I felt that the new character does some things well, and then he doesn't. His weird mannerisms of, like, pointing everywhere and kind of yelling at everything. I do like that it's a front in most cases, and he's not, like, antagonistic to the characters either. Like, one of the cool lines of this week's episode was, like, "You're a friend with Momo, aren't you a friend with me?" And then Okaru's just sitting there going, "Am I a friend with this guy? He's my rival in love and whatever." I'm like, he is, but, like, you can be friends with the guy. And I do appreciate that this show has more to it than it's just a romance show, but I do like that stuff more. To be fair to it, I said in the last update that the last set of fights were just a little too chaotic for me, and they were just trying to do way too much. What worked for this episode, though, was they pulled off a cool cliffhanger. And it drove people a little off the wall, because it's like, why end on this when you know you're doing another core? But, you know, that's how the things are going. Sometimes you get your full anime uploads in a row. Sometimes you split them now. And Dandadan is going to go with the split tour. I think it's going to be like summer or fall or something like that. But as far as the cliffhanger goes, they went in a sort of seedy, disturbing, almost horror direction rather than chaotic energy, which I do think is the show's strength, is when they don't have that kind of energy all the time, so that it makes those moments a little better. And the cliffhanger in question is, oh boy, a hot springs episode, cool. But Momo's sitting there in a hot spring, just lounging for a change, and these weirdos come in. There's, like, legitimate weirdo dudes come in and creep on her, and will up front tell her, like, "You know about the people that are going after girls in hot springs, don't you?" And it's just like, okay, that's pretty insane. That's not an expectation I would have had for a show like this. Of course, I'm imagining they're aliens or yokai or some weird fucking shit, because that's what the show's about. But I do give them credit for keeping with the weirdness, but going more offbeat instead of the high energy insanity, because it does. And I've been saying this for the last couple of updates, is that if you don't give a show time to breathe, then you're just not going to slow down. I liken it to I listen to metal music a lot for reviews for small websites and whatnot. So I listen to a band, and if you've ever heard of speed or power metal, there are times where a band will just have the drums or the guitar going on constantly, because that's the whole point of the genre to an extent. But if it's just a bunch of noise, then what am I really gravitating to? It's just a bunch of noise. And unless the songs themselves are great and unless everything works, I'm just, So first impressions are, hey, this is a great energy. This is something unique. This is cool. 7, 8 episodes on, you can see why that way slower episode 7 still ends up being the high water mark, because it wasn't that kind of episode. And at least I do like that Dandadan is trying to balance it out a little bit and give you an episode of a breakaway from that high octane stuff, because you know you're going to get it and you're going to get that dopamine fix again once the season comes back around and the show starts up again. So all in all, I think Dandadan is successful and it's really good. I don't know if it's something that can maintain it, but I think the writing and the characters and the overall allure of the yokai alien menace stuff mixing is something that I'm gonna go for. And it really does depend on those softer moments, those times when the shonen stuff doesn't always just get, because some people just like the fighty stuff. Somebody like the flashy stuff, but I'm not into that show for that. I want something else from it, and at least I'm getting it in equal measure. So everybody's going to have a different opinion on, oh my god, this is the best thing ever, and oh my god, it's exhausting. So I'm kind of somewhere on the fence. Let's see. Next up is, I have every update now. It's getting a little... Okay, Nina the Starry Bride. I'm kind of hoping this show just ends now. Because they are doing a lot more political intrigue. And it is kind of cool, but... It does feel like it's ramming up itself into a corner. It's trying to figure out, this is where not building things up really slows things down, because I'm wondering if it was meant to be 24 to 26 episodes and they only got 12. And I have seen this before. I've seen shows like Ruby Ice Queendom where you had like 4 or 5 episodes of material and you had a 12 episode show. I've also had things where, oh god, I think it was like Gyuose. There were some other ones that were like, maybe Angel Beats. I'm not sure. But there's like 13 episodes and you have like 26 episodes worth of information and you're just running through it. This looks like they could have spent more time doing a lot more, but they centered on the romance stuff, and now you're trying to build the tension of the political intrigue, but nothing really seems to matter much. Like Nina can only do so much because, again, she's a feisty character and I like her, but she's not a fighter, she's not a politico, she's not a suave talker, and she's dealing with these higher end people that are either very dangerous, very psychotic, very sociopathic, or any manner of the three. And there's only so much that she can do, and she's just kind of this reactionary person. Set gets hurt, so to speak, and she gets blamed for it. And I do like the fact that the queen, or they call her king, even though she's female, the king of Golgotha has some respect for her because Nina's such a go-get-em person. But she is still kind of a bystander with limited effect. So she looks at her and she goes, well, you're just a weak bitch after all. I'm kind of disappointed. You had that like inner monologue of respect of like, I was kind of hoping you do a little bit more. And then little things like, okay, these princesses, because you had the princess thing, but it's already weird because you're saying, well, I like King Azure, I like Princess, and you're doing this like weird love triangle thing, which is fine, I suppose, but now you're trying to layer on top this political intrigue, which has been a thing for a while, but it's coming a little too late. And you're trying to make characters out of these other princesses, and they're not really. They're just archetypes, and they're not, like, there. and then you're trying to think, okay, this is so intense, this is so cool, and a lot of things are happening, and these assassination attempts are cool, and I'm like, oh my god, I had this great plan, and then it turns out you just die. It's just like, okay, so you build up this machination and this anger, and then like a second later you jump cut to, oh, that character's just dead now. It's like, okay, this show is trying way too hard to finish itself early. We don't even get to see, hey, this guy has a monologue and you can see him just, stab the dude. I'm like, I would have loved to see that. I would have liked to see the exchange of, oh my god, I did it for you, something like that. Because I'm more of a, if I see it happen, I get more emotionally invested rather than, oh, I saw this off screen. This is cool. So there's so much the show could have done, but I'm guessing is running against the clock, which I don't know, and I don't even know if it's done. That's the thing. So it just feels like there's something that could be there to either build and expand the world, or they're not taking enough time to expand the world, and they're focusing solely on these two aspects of things rather than other things that they could be building to flesh things out. But it also feels that they're running against the clock of, we got 12 or 13 episodes, we gotta get to the main love triangle thing, or we gotta get to the world building whatever, and then it's like, okay, Nina's trying to tell this person to not invade this place, and it's what, it just feels like they're skipping a lot of steps that seem like, I get it. Sometimes you want to skip steps because you're not, we're not stupid. We kind of know where a thing is going, and this show isn't the type that is, the Dandadan thing, where it's just weird shit is happening, we don't explain it, we just leave it. This is, we need something of substance to cling to, and it's giving us a bit of the cliff notes the further along it gets. So, I mean, I don't hate it, but I'm also just like, you're running up against the clock here of a 13-minute or a 13-episode show, and you're running out of episodes to impress me, and I'm not hating you, but I'm not loving you as much as I did. So I'm like, you could have been so much more. You could have also been way much less. The writing is still pretty good, but it isn't really all that impressive. The longer I go on, it just kind of exists in that, okay, this is a thing. You kind of know what it is, and it kind of stays where it is, and that's fine, I suppose. It's got some time and some episodes left to try and tie up loose ends or set up some other season, because you never know. It could be another one of those shows, and this has happened as well. You get to like 10 or 11 episodes of nothing happening plot-wise, and then you have to cram in another, 1 to 2 episodes to get some final big bad guy or some sort of whatever. If this was a comedy, I would have understood that more, though. Like, this isn't a comedy. It's not meant to be a comedy. It's meant to be more dramatic and then have the comedy leanings there. So it's a bit on the, where do you go and why am I interested? Am I still interested? I have no idea. So I'm waiting for something bigger to happen, but it feels like it's in a race to get to there. Let's see. Natsume's Book of Friends. I'm nearing the end of season 7, which is the most recent update. So that means that I gotta find some other show to binge watch soon. I haven't, it's weird. I normally get a show done in like a week or 2 weeks. Even now that I'm doing the weekly or the bi-monthly discussion points, I still, usually go for the quicker shows. The fact that this thing, grabbed me as a 70, 80 episode experience and I kept going for like a month and a half is pretty nice. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that everything is episodic. And seasons 6 and 7 tended to focus a lot on relationships and trying to learn about Natsume's grandmother, Reiko, a little bit more. And they actually give you an episode, Gomochi's Benefactor, where she is the main character. She isn't just there for like 2 minutes or 3 minutes. She actually gets the episode to herself in sort of a flashback. There's a cool episode about this guy who has a study where he has all this research, and you have to kind of go through this maze of stuff and try to figure out how to do that. More episodes about other people that Natsume has dealt with in their past, and I've always kind of liked those episodes where Natsume is affecting someone in some way and they're remembering how they affected him. It's kind of cool when they do those kinds of things, whether it's a former school, a former schoolmate, a former teacher, a former whatever, a former yokai, something cool like that. Depths of the Page was one where, like, this yokai got... How would I describe it? One of Natsume's dorky friends got sort of interested in this girl who runs this library, but it turns out she's a yokai. So I'm like, where is this going to go? It turns out she's kind of protecting this library from this like killer demon thing that's like, if you open a book and you open to a page that says, my hand, he will suck out the energy of your hand and it will become unusable, and then he will gain power. It's kind of, I was kind of hoping it would be a two-parter so you could slowly like see people like lose their energy. And if this was a darker type of show, you would have seen it be kind of a serial murder kind of thing. But as it is, it was just, hey, half kind of romantic, sort of, because the show doesn't like over analyze that sort of aspect of it. But it does enough of those sometimes that it gets cool. But I did like the mechanics. I just wish they would have gotten a little bit more into that too. The Abandoned Station, this one was cool because it was a Mataba-based episode. Mataba is a fucking bitch. Like, there is no redeeming, humanity in this guy. And credits to the actor for letting that come across, because it's just every time he speaks you have this like, yeah, I know he's super powerful, but he fucking flaunts it into the sense that he has like no shred of decency, always has an ulterior motive, always thinks he's better than everybody else, and it's fucking frustrating. And that's kind of the point of this character, because a show this well thought out and pretty well comedic and low stakes, that this guy exists as a, you're going to be my friend, or you're going to be my servant, or you're going to be my yokai because I said so, and there's not a fucking thing you can do about it. Resting bitch voice, as I've said before, he has it. And so they do an episode where he sort of forces Natsume into helping him seal off a yokai that's like, they stole his eye, and the yokai wants it back, so he keeps messing with him, and he drops out of the middle of nowhere and tries to eat the dude, but the other yokai that they're chasing, is involved, this like weird fucking doll thing. So Natsume helps out with that, but then Mataba talks to the big giant blob thing and just goes, this thing took your eye, not me. And this thing just eats the other thing, and it's just like, okay. So you coerce the demon that is going after, or a yokai that's going after you, to eat a different one. I'm like, shit. This guy has no qualms. And again, he's trying to get Natsume to join him, and it's like, no. On the other side, you finally have Natsume, talking to Hattori about, hey, I have this. Is it Hattori or Natri? I forget, but he finally learns about the Book of Friends. He finally just understands that, like, I got to tell him that is a thing. Is this going to be a problem? And then he's just like, Shuichi's just like, no. It's like, it's yours. I don't care about it. And I'm grateful that you told me. So it's fine. The last episode that I saw, and one that I do enjoy, because this has been kind of that like slow build, slow burn thing that they don't tease too much. I talked about not focusing on the romance parts too much because it's not that type of show. But I could feel it building with Torutaki as Natsume's eventual girlfriend, because it's kind of leaning that direction, but not really. because you have a couple of friends who are into the yokai crap, other friends that are just, we're just dorks. So you have that subsection, that division there, and the show does make it pretty clear that that division exists for a reason. And Taki is that, like, she's not a main character. She's not a main focus. She's not in every episode. It's just Natsume and Kitty Cat. So it's like, all right, well, whenever Taki shows up, you do get this thing. It was like, they could get in a relationship someday, but they're not focusing on it. So this episode was, she confides in him that her brother comes by, and her brother is like anti-yokai. He's the paranormal investigator that's trying to get rid of that shit. So he's looking for something in his home that he left behind for Taki, and he's like, okay, not really the biggest stakes in the world, but the brother is also like, this Natsume guy's not a bad deal. I'll just leave my sister to you, as kind of a silent confession. And they do the spit take. I was like, I didn't think of your sister that way. It's like, he totally does. But again, I think it's one of those like very slow moving iceberg things. Like, it's moving, but you don't see it. And I'm just like, maybe it will go that direction someday. I don't know. The show moves slow enough that it could keep going for another 10 seasons. It really just depends on how many weird ideas it gets. Because I definitely see that relationships have formed, have moved, and it isn't the sort of thing where all the stakes go away. They do reference characters and things that have happened before. They do try to build on things, but they do it slowly enough that it's trying to stay as its own self-contained episode half the time. So it's very subtle. And it isn't until I've been watching it for over a month that I'm like, okay, I can see these relationships slowly building, and it has made more sense as things have gone on. I'm glad that I'm done with the show, though. I've got like a couple straggler episodes remaining, but really, like, this is going to be one of those things that's like, as things develop and they keep building more to it, as the years go on, it's like, well, it could just keep going forever if it wants to. And I'm happy with it. It stayed as pretty good, or it started as pretty good, maintained it all the way through, and for the fact that it had like 80 episodes and I never got bored was a good sign. So I'll probably have to do a more thorough episode on it someday, but it's not over yet, so I don't know what I'm going to do with it. But I can put it to bed for now and move on to other things, such as Demon Lord 2099. I said in the last update that it felt like they were trying to get through one story arc really fucking fast and one set of villains way too fucking fast, so they did. So their new thing was, okay, what about Veltol and Machina going to school? And, Takahashi joining them for reasons, I guess, because she's a hacker, whatever. So they notify the principal of this like magic school, hey, there are these 3 MacGuffins, find them, open a treasure vault to something you may or may need to find an immortal or some such. So he joins the class, and the hilarity ensues because he knows how magic works better than anyone in the classroom. The overarching plot line is this other girl, Hizuki, who's just, browbeaten and bullied by a bunch of assholes. Apparently, Veltol knows that she has more power than anybody else. It's kind of those like latent power things where it's like, I'm more powerful than I think. I just need it to explode and get the fuck out of me. That sort of thing. That part's not what I find interesting, because that's kind of your hook. I do like that he just up and gets challenged by this best character in the classroom, mops the floor with him, and doesn't even make two shits about it. He's just like, you stopped me from eating my food. What the fuck is wrong with you? It's just like, just, okay. Like, I love that he's just so committed to, I just wanted to eat food. You distracted me from eating food. You're bullying people who are better than you and you don't know it. And it puts the fucker in his place, and it's just nice. They didn't even do this like, this guy sort of had a chance. They make it pretty obvious that he didn't have a chance, and that Veltol is so far above these people, and I'm kind of shocked that the other people aren't just like, is he somebody better than us? What the fuck? Nobody questions it, probably because they already know, like the faculty and the principal already know that he's there, so it's not really a shock to anyone except everybody else. The best part was Hizuki running a maid cafe, and they're spending like 2 or 3 episodes trying to like extol the virtues of maid cafes, and these dudes in the other table are going, maid cafes are the best. That's like, what? Like, maid cafes are ripoff bars for horny male people. It's basically hostess clubs, but with maids. But whatever, we know it. Everybody knows it. And it was just this weird exchange. And then they find out he's actually working there. I'm like, okay, that's an interesting cliffhanger. I can understand people dropping this one because it is a lot of talky stuff, and the combat stuff isn't great. A lot of this show kind of revolves around, if you like, the 3 main characters, and specifically the way like Veltol interacts with people in this world. It's not perfect, but it's still got a few episodes of the season to go. I can understand why it's not great. If I was to say which of these was my favorite, it would have been, Natsume, Dandadan. Even though Dandadan's more exciting, Natsume is a lot more consistent. So Natsume, Dandadan, I would say Demon Lord is a little weaker than Nina, but Nina is starting to falter in its own end. But again, I think they're all keepers in their own way. Even the last 2 in a sort of junk food disposable kind of way. Like, especially Demon Lord is a very junk food show, and it's fine. As far as next season, I don't know if I'll get to those episodes yet, because it really depends on if a dub version shows up immediately like Dandadan does, or if it takes a couple of weeks to filter in the dub versions before the subbed versions already uploaded. So bear that in mind. It'll probably just be a cleanup of a couple of the other shows that haven't finished yet. But if I'm able to get to like Apothecary Diaries 2 or Happy Marriage 2, I'll talk about those. Those are the 2 shows I'm really looking forward to and absolutely are going to talk about, because My Happy Marriage is something my friend and I have been watching. Apothecary, I already knew, and then we started watching it together pretty much right before this season ended. So I'm as into Apothecary Diaries about almost anything else on the docket. I've seen a couple of other trailers. Specifically, there's one, is it Miss Elf or Welcome to Japan Miss Elf or something? It really didn't impress me much. It felt like an isekai, but also one of those, this is an advertisement for the glory of Japan, for our freaking tourist attraction. The Persona 5 Strikers and Yakuza problem. Obviously, a show is not what a trailer is going to be. Like, even if a trailer is bad, like, you can end up with a show that could be good, or you can end up with a show that's terrible, even if the trailer is bad. You just never know. But, other shows are like that. Like, what's that guild lady who, one-shots dudes in their free time or something? I don't know the name of it. But, there are going to be like 10 or 15 other shows, and I'm going to filter through that when the new season hits. And that episode is going to be very intense, because it's like, how the fuck am I going to manage all these shows? It'll probably be like before, where I just have to watch it and be like, okay, am I going to stick with it? No. Am I going to stick with it? Yes, and here's why. Something like that. But I won't know until the episodes actually start filtering in. But as far as the schedule for everything else, though, I've already done the episode for Higehiro, so I've gotten that recorded. And then the next main episode after that is how I got into JRPGs and anime. So I'll record that next week. And then East 8, Golden Boy. I'm also going to do an episode on the first season of the new Spice and Wolf remake. Because it is a subtle difference from the original 2008 show. Not too much, but there are still some storyline differences. And they might add more later. And the one I just uploaded today, or as an idea, is Persona 5 Strikers. So I haven't actually talked about Persona 5 Strikers yet. I'm kind of surprised, given my SMT and Persona love. I'm kind of shocked I haven't gotten around to Strikers yet. But hey, better late than never, I suppose. But that'll do for this episode this week, and I'll see you next time.